Welcome back, man.
Yeah, are we live?
We're
We're good?
live, man.
All right.
We're good.
It is still allergy season.
It still is. We're still fighting this battle, and I think I'm kind of coming to an end of it.
Are you?
Yeah, I think
Are
so.
you sure?
I don't know. It's one of those things where I go to bed every night thinking, I feel a whole lot better, and then I wake up next morning, I'm like, I don't feel no better than what I did the day
I
before.
hear you. 'Tis the season.
It is. It is. Well, I am thankful to be here, even though I'm battling this nasty allergy season. And I'm also thankful to have my friend Chris Strathy here. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here, man. Excited.
And today we're talking about the wonderful drug Narcan.
Let's do this.
And we've actually been talking about it prior to going live, about some things that we are doing here in our county. And we're excited about this and some other efforts. But let's talk about Narcan. What is Narcan? I'm sitting here holding a training device, Narcan. This is actually a device that is used intranasally, which is the common form of the Narcan that we pass out. What is Narcan? Well, Narcan is a medication that's actually, I don't know if you know this or not, I did a little investigation on this, and I'm sure you may have done the same. Actually was created by the same people who created Coumadin or warfarin. Back in 1920, Narcan has been around. Naloxone, which is the name for it, had been around since 1920, and it was created for the opioids that were being used in the military. And what happened was that they never patented it. They just kind of created it and they put it on the shelf as an alternative for a drug to reverse opioid effects. And until 1961 is when it was finally patented and created for opioid reversal. And so ultimately, Narcan is a medication, usually at the time created for IM, intramuscular, or IV, intravenous, and used for the reversal of opioids. It is called a opioid antagonist. And if you were ever in the English class, which is how I kind of come to this idea of the word antagonist, you have your protagonist and you have your antagonist. And your protagonist is someone like the hero of the story. The antagonist is the bad guy of the story because they're constantly going after you or going after. So, but in our story, in the opioid story, in the opioid epidemic story, although it's called an antagonist, it's actually a protagonist because Narcan does one thing: it saves lives. There is no side effects. It attacks the chemical receptors and blocks those chemical receptors from allowing opioids to interact with. And we talked a little bit about what are these receptors. Well, receptors are the ones that are continuously working with our nervous system to keep our hearts beating. It keeps our mental status. It keeps our lungs breathing. It keeps us focused. And when an opioid attacks it, like we talked about last week, when an opioid attacks it, it blocks those receptors and keeps them from firing, keeps those signals from crossing. And so that's when someone takes an opioid drug, it decreases, it diminishes or depresses the central nervous system, causing us to slow our heart rate down, slow our breathing down, have ultramental status, circulation decreases, and ultimately death occurs. And so as Narcan works, it blocks those receptors from opioids from getting in, and it also wipes away those receptors from that are already interacted with opioids. And so it is an absolute wonderful drug. And guess what? There is no side effects. I think the only side effects is possibly a headache or just when someone comes up from an opioid.
Yeah, it's absolutely very safe, and which is the reason we really need to equip folks in the community with it. Shouldn't be scared to use it. We're really, you and I are both encouraging folks to, learn about naloxone. That's the reason we're doing this, but really equip themselves with it. You know, it's the bystander, the family member, the community member that's going to identify an overdose and save a life with it. But like you said, there's nothing to worry about if you're, you know, giving somebody an intranasal shot of Narcan. You can't hurt them.
Yeah, and that's something, you know, ultimately, eventually, these naloxone went from IV and intramuscular IM to IN, which is intranasal, and which was created to be a faster route. Now, when I first got into EMS, that side of it, we were trained, and this was excuse me, we were trained, well, EMS was trained a long time ago, but about 10 years ago, our community decided that we were going to train not just EMS workers, but we were going to train first responders and sheriff's officers, fire, police, whatever we needed to do to help them understand how to use Narcan. So we trained the whole community in how to use Narcan. And at that point in time, it was in a syringe. We pulled it up, and then we put what we call an atomizer on it. And an atomizer sprays it into like a mist, a fine, very, very fine mist that when placed in the nostrils, because it is not so much a faster route, but it is a quicker way to give
Sure.
Narcan.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of homework, and I think if you had 3 methods in front of you, you know, IV, IM, and through the nose, IN, the reaction time to the drug taking effect is longer with the IN. It's up to 10 minutes. The IM is 5 minutes, and I think the IV is 2 minutes. But it's, like you said, you know, the bystander isn't going to draw up a syringe and have a sterile, and certainly not going to be able to do IV. And IM is plausible for somebody that's been trained, but somebody that hasn't been trained, if you miss a muscle or if you know, it's a
or you hit a vein.
Yeah, or right, there is liability to that. There is danger to that if you're not a medical professional.
Yeah.
You know, I was prescribed IM medicine when I went through my health disaster. You know, I was giving myself shots in the leg. You know, it was an IM. It wasn't an opiate. It was just a part of my regime, and I was comfortable doing that. But for your everyday person that's out there that we're hoping to equip to save a life, you know, the IN just is great. And it's, you know, maybe you can talk a little bit about what it looks like, and I'll just start with, you know, if it's somebody that's an addict that overdosed, they're going to go into a lot of pain really quick. Like it's withdrawal that they're going in. So it's but there's kind of a 10-minute waking up. You want to talk about what that looks like physically?
Yeah. So ultimately, when there's 2 sides of this nowadays, if I can say that nowadays, you know, when we first got trained to use IN Narcan, one of the things that we were warned, and we still warn people today, is that, and like you said, IN does have a 5-minute work time, to where once the medication is given, it takes anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes for it to take effect. And so we were warned. The dosage back in the day was 1 to 2 milligrams, up to 2 milligrams. So we would start slow, and we would give a half of a milligram up each nostril, and then we would wait. And that kind of slowed the effects a little bit to where they didn't come off the high just as quickly. But sometimes, in some unfortunate situations, people gave, you know, 1 milligram up one nose and 1 milligram, and that wiped that opioid off that receptor, and they would come up very angry, very groggy because they were high. They were, you know, unresponsibly high, and in pain.
Physical pain, absolutely.
Physical pain from coming off that. And so, and there were times, unfortunately, it ended up in fights, very verbal, very angry situations. Today, because the opioids that's being used in the field are so much worse, so much stronger, that we have discovered that the Narcan that we're giving, the 2 milligrams up to 2 milligrams, is not effective.
Well, they're 4, or isn't?
Yes,
or
so now they're
4,
making
so
4. We give 4, and there's actually a company that is currently making and distributing 8 milligram nasal sprays.
Ain't that something?
And the reason being is because we have seen many times where we give 2 milligrams, or an officer may give 4 milligrams, and in total we have given anywhere between 8 to 20 milligrams of Narcan because of the potency of the drug, which was
Sure.
some is fentanyl.
Well, and so crazy and insane that that's what's needed to reverse it, but also saving a life. But when it comes to doses that high, how important is it to get immediate care after somebody's woken up? Can somebody slip back into
Yes.
how long the effects? So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, and I think that's a great point. When an individual who is overdosed is resuscitated, and when we give them the Narcan, regardless of how many doses we give them, we encourage them repeatedly, hey, look, you need to go to the hospital. You need to be seen by a physician. You need to be evaluated for several hours, because the drug can wear off. And if there's still opioids, and the strength of these opioids are still in the system, then they could very easily fall back in those receptors, and they can go back into a depressed central nervous system situation. Again, low heart rate, low breathing, altered mental status, and death. And so we always encourage, hey, look, the situation occurs as when they are resuscitated, they're given this medication, they feel fine. They feel like all the medication's gone, they
Right.
don't want to go to the hospital. And we're like, look, you need to understand, and people need to understand, just because the medication at that point in time has been reversed does not mean it will not go back. And
Sure.
once it goes back and you don't have any Narcan around, you don't have Narcan available, then you could very easily go back into that death situation.
Sure. And I'm thinking, or my thought when asking that was, a lot of prescription medications are long-acting opiates. So say it was a child accidental, or someone took pills for the first time, but they were a powerful, long-acting opiate, so meant to be released over 24 hours. So if that person's overdosed and your Narcan's administered and they seem fine, and it's been an hour or two, and go, what you're saying is, and then go right back into overdose, right?
Yes.
So it's really important to get follow-up care.
Yes.
Anytime naloxone is
Absolutely.
Okay.
We want to make sure that the medication is completely out of the system, and the only way to do that is to be evaluated by a doctor or an emergency room or emergency department.
Sure, and even if illicit users have no idea what they're putting in their veins, up their nose,
No,
it's a guess, but they absolutely have no idea.
Yeah, and so that is, and for that very reason, Chris, is the reason why you and I and our community, our SUDS department, Mallory and Caitlin for SUDS, are pushing forth this process of distributing Narcan, educating people on Narcan, because you just don't know. You don't know.
Well, and we'll go back to the stigma. It's the us and them, those people, the addicts. But I was one of those people, and I have lots of friends I've buried, and I have family that struggle with this. This is a very real thing. So whether you know somebody, or you know somebody but you don't want to admit you know somebody, we all know somebody. And we all can easily equip ourselves to save lives. Children's lives, elderly lives, brothers, sisters, sons, neighbors.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important we push past that stigma, equip ourselves. One thing you and I were just talking about before we went live is got vending machines coming, and that's a common community plot in lots of local communities around North Carolina, at least, that they're getting these vending machines or free vending machines. They have information in them, the lock zone.
So this is a cool story about how the whole vending machine came around. We had been talking about it in our sales department. You and I had been talking about it. It's a part of the opioid settlement program, our PORT program, of distributing Narcan, getting Narcan out in the world, out in people's hands. At that point in time, prior to that, our only way that we were doing that is when we would go out to an individual's home who had known substance use, and we would hand them what we called an overdose packet. The overdose packet included inside of it information about our PORT program, information about support and help within the community. We gave them some little trinkets like pins and
chapstick, man.
Which you can't never have enough chapstick. As a matter of fact, I got one right here.
There you go.
But we also gave them xylazine test strips, which is to test medications to make sure there was no xylazine in it.
We'll talk about that one soon. That's a whole nother episode. Yeah.
Crazy medication, and then fentanyl drug test strips, which tested medications to make sure that there were no fentanyl, because a lot of people who have died in the past year and even this year were given pressed medications that looked like a medication that they were normally used to taking, maybe at one time were prescribed to, but they were laced or made with fentanyl. And so and then of course their very own Narcan intranasal spray, still packaged. So that's ultimately the only way we were able to do that. And so as one night, as we had been talking about, hey, there's a way to do vending machines, and so one night, as I was laying on my couch, just mindlessly scrolling through TikTok,
vegging,
I saw an ad from Blue Cross Blue Shield where they had donated a vending machine to a community in North Carolina, and I was like, oh.
Awesome.
That's cool. I didn't even know they did that. And so here I am, I think it was like late one night. I'm trying to find this number or contact, and there's an email, and I sent an email, and this lady's like, oh yeah, we would love to look into this. I'm going to direct you to somebody else. And so I got a message to this person, and within a few days they called and, hey, let's set up a meeting. Let's talk about what you're doing, because we are seriously looking at going, and we have been doing this for a while. This was kind of a trial run we did with this community, but we're really interested to see what you're doing currently in your community. And so we had a Zoom meeting, and she said, hey, we may be able to help this out. I won't be able to know for a couple months. And so we kind of sat on our hands for just a little bit, and then we got the call that they were going to be able to help us based on their budget for this year, and we have a vending machine coming.
Two vending machines.
And this is exciting because it gives us an opportunity to not only continue to pass out the overdose packets, but now we have a central location, thanks to, I guess I can say the place.
Sure.
Cafe Mobile, which is right here off of Main Street in downtown Taylorsville. We have an opportunity to set up a vending machine that will be available for people who are in need of Narcan. It's not that we have to go find them. It's a central location. They're able to go find it. And we're also going to be able to put other things in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to serve the community and equip the community to be lifesavers, but also equip folks that may be struggling. I think everybody's struggling. Everybody's feeling the hurt of what it takes to live nowadays. Yeah. So, whether it's we call them an indigent kit, but a little kit to make sure your teeth are clean, your hair is washed, your
shampoos,
just things to help take care of yourself.
And and it's a big machine.
Yeah, one of the machines holds like 500 items. The other one holds 300 or 400. So that's great, and that's I say we, but the community has the Narcan, has the funds, right? Has
and so and that's something too that people may not know that they do need to know is at one point in time Narcan was a prescribed medication. If you had some sort of pain, or you went in for some sort of surgery and you were given specifically an opioid drug to take back home with you until you recovered, then a doctor would prescribe you a syringe. They did IM syringes, IM as in Mary syringes.
Intramuscular.
We can say intramuscular because we're entering the muscle.
Yeah.
I think I've said that many times before. Intramuscular. And if an individual had a known substance use, then their provider would also provide them Narcan intramuscular. And today, I think within the past year, I don't know exactly the date, so you'll have to look that up. Narcan is available over the counter.
Yeah, I forget the exact terminology. You still have to get it from a pharmacist.
Yes.
But it's like a self-written prescription, some term like that. So
you can go up to it's sitting at the counter. You can walk up and take it up there and just get it.
Yeah, kind of like Sudafed or anything else. I think it's it's behind a counter, but it's available for anybody that wants it. But it also is costly.
Mm-hmm. It is very costly, and so. As our goal in this podcast is to break the stigma, because I know the question is going to be, well, if people recognize they have a problem, then why don't they go get it themselves? Why are you trying to provide it? And here's the reason. We don't do that. You as an individual, if you have a problem, if you have a situation that maybe perhaps you're embarrassed about, or you don't want nobody to know, or maybe you're in denial and you think you don't have a problem, you're not going to go up and purchase this. You're going to say, eventually it'll get better. And we don't want to take that chance. We want to make sure that everybody has plenty of opportunities, repeated opportunities for a better life. And I love what a representative from RHA said in one of our SUDS meetings one time. The reason why we give out Narcan is because we want people to go to rehab. We want people to get in recovery. And if they're dead,
it ain't happening.
Right. And so we want to make sure that everybody has repeated opportunities for a better life.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we are pushing and distributing freely naloxone, Narcan, because we want people to live and we want people to have a better life.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that because if you've listened to our first two episodes, you might have picked up on my resentment towards the pharmaceutical industry. My opinion, it should be free. It's been proven, or they've through a settlement kind of admitted guilt to causing an epidemic. Overprescribing,
billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Yes.
You don't just throw billions of dollars at something because you just want to. You do it because you.
Well, and that's a drop in the bucket for them too.
Sure.
Billions. So knowingly cause an epidemic, knowingly overprescribe medications, and I'm gonna say hiding the negative effects. Minimizing the adverse effects of these medications.
Yeah.
So it's their fault.
Yeah.
Let's be real about it.
If you want a great movie, there's two, and I'm going to suggest one. If you want a movie and you're listening to this and you're like, I wish I just had some more information about this opioid epidemic and this opioid settlement, I encourage you to either read. I encourage you to read the book Dope Sick. But if you're not a reader, then I want you to kind of get some sort of education in how devastating this whole thing was. You can actually watch the movie Dope Sick. I think if you have a Hulu subscription, then you can watch that. But that shows the exact the family, the pharmaceutical company that created this opioid epidemic, and opioid epidemics have been around for years and years and years.
Yeah, 3,000 actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was around 3,000 years ago they started, harvesting opium for medicinal and euphoria.
Yeah. And our military back in, I believe it was Vietnam, really struggled with the opium, and were addicted, and our soldiers come home addicted, and so it's been around for years. But this medication that this pharmaceutical company pushed was taunted or discussed as safe and non-addictive, and they did nothing but increase the dosages so that people would get addicted.
Right. Yeah. It makes money.
Yeah.
That's all the real.
You're exactly right.
It's what. Yeah. So I won't go down that rabbit hole. Maybe another. We can rail on the
go
industry.
for hours about this stuff.
I do want to bring up the Good Samaritan. I think it's important to know that you cannot get in trouble for administering Narcan. You can not go to prison or get locked up for asking for help. If it's my understanding, I believe if you're, I don't know, maybe that's discretionary.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. You're 100% right. And I say this to any layperson who is out here in the community and they recognize somebody who needs CPR.
Sure.
Vouches the same for anyone who is recognized they need Narcan. Good Samaritan law offers legal protection to people who give reasonable assistance to those who are or whom they believe to be injured, ill, in peril, or otherwise incapacitated. And as you know, and as we have discussed many times, anyone who takes an opioid drug can very well become incapacitated.
Sure.
And so if you recognize the signs, and we talked about this, but it's worth repeating, decreased heart rate, unresponsiveness, decreased breathing, altered mental status, unconscious, not breathing, that is a person that's incapacitated, and I would attempt to give them Narcan. We give them Narcan or naloxone to resuscitate them. Again, it takes 2 to 5 minutes to take effect.
And call 911 too.
Of course,
call 911.
Call 911 before you give it, but go ahead and give it if you have it available. And that's the reason why we are pushing and making sure it is available.
Yeah, there should be no fear to administer naloxone if you think it's needed.
I mean, think about this for a second, Chris. If you find somebody that's incapacitated, unresponsive, out here at, say your local store, and you see an AED device, does that make you feel better? Does it make you feel like, hey, I've got something that is known to work and help people save lives? All right? That's the same thing with naloxone. If we know that it's available, we know that it's nearby, you know that it's easily accessible, then it should make us feel better about how we're going to help people.
Absolutely. So I'd like to see a paradigm shift. There are lots of folks in the community that sign up for first aid classes, that sign up for CPR classes, first responder teachers. There are folks out there that care about serving the community and being available, equipping themselves to do what they can if they run up on something. And I'd like to see the next push for that to be equipping themselves with Narcan.
Yeah, 100%. And let's think about this for a second. I'm glad I thought about this because I think we are getting real close to our time. Narcan is not just for the person who's a substance user. It's not for the addict. It's for anyone who works in the public, who serves in the public. We've had situations before where our sheriff's office, our EMS crews, bystanders have been around fentanyl. They've touched it. I remember one time there was a fentanyl pill that was crushed up on someone's cell phone, and then they snorted it.
Yeah.
When they went unresponsive, the phone was laying directly on top of them.
Yeah.
What do? We come in, we pick the phone up, we're touching this stuff. Yeah. If it was to be absorbed into our bodies, then we would need the Narcan.
Absolutely.
So why not have those things accessible? And that's what we're doing, and that's the reason why it's so important for that medication to get out. So,
Absolutely.
Naloxone, Narcan, amazing drug. What does it do? It saves lives.
It absolutely does.
And we're wanting to put it in the hands and train as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think that'll be, we spoke about the vending machines coming up. They're getting ready to be shipped out, and we have a definite location for one, and brainstorm in another location in the county for the second one. But I think, we've spoken about this, I don't want to announce details yet, but we will be doing community meetings to inform folks what opiate overdose looks like, and how to administer Narcan, and then equip people, send them home with it. You want to show up if you non-judgmental, a meeting because you care about your community, whether you think you know somebody or not, and just learn about this and become equipped to save a life.
Absolutely. And so just remember, the next time you hear the word Narcan or you hear the word naloxone, then you recognize that this is a drug that is worthy of a discussion, and we need everybody to understand how important it is and the value of it is. It's got a terrible stigma to it, and the reason why we do it is because it saves lives, and that's the most important.
Absolutely.
Human life, it matters. Human life matters.
Every single one of them. And if you're listening to this and you're in the community, we're talking about somebody else in your community.
Mm-hmm.
I
talking
love
about
this place. And I love everybody here. We live in a special community, and we need this.
Yep. So, again, thank you for listening to our podcast and on naloxone, and we look forward to meeting with you again next week. My name is Shannon Childers.
And I'm Chris Drathy.
And we are the Chemical Brothers.